In fact, I'm going to tell you this right now. It is easier in today's society to borrow your way wealthy than it is ever to save your way wealthy. And most people try to save their way wealthy. And I want to prove it to you. How long would it take you people in this room to save $1 million? I'll let you think about it. A long time, would you agree? How long would it take you to borrow $1 million? Well, for some of you in this room, it would take you 10 minutes. Some of you in this room, it would not take you 10 minutes. It may take you a few years, and you'd have to borrow it in chunks. But would it be easier and faster to borrow the money than it would be to save it? Would you agree? Which now brings me to another form of good debt I want to talk about. It's my favorite debt. It's the one that creates wealth the fastest, and it's called great debt. And here's what it is. Great debt. In fact, the way I'm going to teach this to you is I'm now going to give you a plan that I promised to give you earlier on how you can make an extra $1 million in your life. And by the way, I always say an extra $1 million because I realize that some of you in this room already have $1 million, so this will just be for an extra. And those of you who don't have $1 million, I'm saying it's extra for you also. Here's all you have to do. It's a simple plan. Follow 3 steps. You do not even need to write these steps down because you will have them memorized by the time I'm done. Here's your 3 steps to get $1 million in your life for sure. And by the way, this is a for sure plan. Step number 1, go out and borrow $1 million. Step number 2, take the $1 million you just borrowed and buy $1 million worth of assets that you believe are going to go up in the future. Step number 3, find other people who would love to pay off the $1 million of loan that you have on the assets you just bought. At some point in time, when those other people pay off all the loan, you will then own the assets that somebody else bought you, and you will have $1 million in your life for sure. Did everybody get that? Now, usually when I teach this, people respond and say, but Dave, you're missing some of the details. So let me break down what I just taught you and make it a lot easier. Watch this. I said step number 1, go out and borrow $1 million. Isn't that what I said? But I did not say go borrow it all at once. Here's what I want all of you to do if you want $1 million in your life for sure. The next year, since we're in the early part of the year, it's a good time to do this. This next year, what I would like you to do, while you're in the real estate business, or if you're not in the real estate business, I don't care. I want you to go out into that real estate industry and see if you can find 2 little starter homes or townhomes in your area. I don't know the price points in your area. They might be anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000, but they're the starter properties. Townhomes or homes. Now, before we go any further, is there homes for sale or townhomes for sale between the $100,000 to $200,000 price point? Yes. If I said I want you, and I'm going to give you a full year, to go find 2 of them in 1 year, do you think that's possible? Yes. And I want you to find 2 of them where you can borrow almost all the money to buy them. Is that possible? Yes. Okay, that's what I want you to do in year number 1. Then next year, you know what I want you to do? I want you to do the same thing, see if you can find 2 more. Then next year, 2 more. The next year, 2 more. Next year, 2 more. I want you to do that for 5 years. At the end of 5 years, you can stop if you want. However, you're in the habit of buying 2 a year, so you might want to continue. But you can stop if you want. If you stop, you would now own 10 properties, which have, if we use the base price of $100,000, which I know is low, that'd be $1 million of real estate. And you'd have $1 million of loans on them. Isn't that true? Then what do you need to do next? You need to find other people who'd be willing to pay off those loans. And by the way, they're all over the place. 30 to 40% of the population are these people. They have a name. They're called renters. You put renters in these little houses and townhouses, and you work really hard for the next 10 to 15 years. Yes, you have to deal with some of the tenants' problems, and you might have to plunge a few toilets. But then watch what happens. At the end of 10 or 15 years, after you've collected all the rent from the tenant, you use the rent and paid off all your loans. At the end of 10 or 15 years, what happens is all your loans are paid for. And at that point, will you have $1 million in your life for sure? No. You'll have $2 to $3 to $4 million in your life for sure, because tell me what's going to happen to that real estate over the next 15 years. It's going to appreciate. And gang, not only will you have $2 to $3 to $4 million for sure, you're going to have 10 properties that are now paid for that are producing an annual income somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $150,000 a year for the rest of your life. Now, you know what I know? I just taught 70 people how to go out and get an extra $1 million in their life in the next 10 to 15 years. Out of 70 people in this room, how many of you are going to actually go out and do what I just said? Don't raise your hands because I already know the answer. Out of 70 people in this room, here's how many people are going to actually do it. We'll be lucky if half a person does it. Yes, 2 of you will have to get together to make it work. It's about 1 out of 100 to 150 people are going to actually do it. A lot of you right now say you have good intentions, but a lot of you will not. And let me tell you why you won't. First of all, some of you, as you listen to me this morning, you're thinking about all the reasons why that plan will not work. Right? Or you're saying, he's missing a whole bunch of details, he's not talking about that. Or you're saying, he's talking about being a landlord. That's what he's talking about, and I heard about that. By the way, have you heard about that? Have you heard about being a landlord? Hey, tell me what you heard. Good stuff, isn't it? By the way, have you heard the tenants don't pay rent? Have you heard the tenants trash units? Have you heard the tenants call you up? When? In the middle of the night, right when you're in the middle of one of those hot sex dreams, they wake you up right in the middle. And that's disturbing, okay? I'm here to tell you that everything you heard about being a landlord is absolutely true. It all happens. It's all true. It all happens. But here's what you need to understand, gang. It all happens. But it doesn't happen that often. It's just that we as human beings, what do we tend to remember, the good or the bad? Bad. What do we blow out of proportion so people feel sorry for us, the good or the bad? Bad. What is the news about, the good or the bad? Bad. We don't talk about the good, we talk about the bad. Isn't that right? That's why you hear all the horror stories. That's what the news is about. Well, now I'm going to share with you the good. Yes, the bad happens. It doesn't happen that often, but here's the good. You're getting rich. Somebody else is buying you a bunch of real estate. And by the way, you get to the point where you don't need to ever deal with the bad again because you have so much money, you hire other people to deal with the bad. Now, in the beginning, you might have to deal with the bad once in a while. Yeah, but you want to know something? It's really not that bad. It's all perspective. In other words, watch this. What is the worst that's going to happen? A tenant trashes your unit. You may have to learn how to evict them, and they leave the place a mess. Isn't that true? Well, what do you got now? You got a really trashed house. Well, what is a trashed house? It means this. You go over there, and there's garbage throughout the entire property. What do you need to do? You need to clean it up by going and getting a dumpster. Now, you're going to need a large dumpster because we're going to say they really left a lot of garbage. What does a 30-yard big dumpster cost that you see at construction sites? $350. $400. Actually, $397. How do you think I know this? And we're going to say the house is so bad that you need two of them. You got to go get two dumpsters, and what you do is you get the dumpsters. We're right now rounding off about $800, and then what do I need to do next? I need to take this stuff out of the house and throw it in the dumpster, right? Ooh, wait a minute. You learned something, and I know you learned this because you learned it in course once so that you could pass the exam. You learned that if a tenant ever leaves their stuff in the property, you're supposed to take their stuff and store it for how long?
60 days.
60 days. Well, I'm going to be real with you because today is a real day. I do store their stuff in the dumpster. Nobody leaves good stuff. Do they take their good stuff and leave you the crap? Isn't that true? So you throw it in the dumpster. By the way, if they want to come back in 60 days and dig around the dumpster, do I let them? Yes. You bet. Nobody comes back. All right, so watch this. I'm going to round it off. I got $800 in dumpster costs, $200 to hire somebody to help me clean out the house, $1,000 for dumpsters. Now what do I need to do? Now I need to go in the house and fix any damage. Let's say there's big holes in the wall. What are the walls made out of?
Sheetrock.
Sheetrock. What's a 4x8 half-inch piece of sheetrock currently cost from Menards? $5 to $7. By the way, will that fix a lot of holes? And I know you got to tape it, paint it, mud it. Big deal. You need to understand, you see a hole in the wall? It's about a $20 to $25 problem, and that's if you hire somebody else to do it. It just isn't that big of a deal. If there's 10 giant holes, what do you got? $250 to fix the holes? It's not that big of a deal. Let's say there's some carpet that's damaged. Let's say some cabinet doors are missing. Let's say when you're all done, it costs you $5 grand just to get the house back in rentable condition. And let's say this happens at least once to all of your 10 houses during the next 10 to 15 years, which I'm telling you is a high percentage that happens. I mean, that's not going to happen that often. But if it happened once to all of your properties, watch this. It's $5 grand times 10 houses. And let's say it takes 2 months of your time to deal with this. Here's the real question I'm asking all of you right now. How many of you in this room would spend 2 months of your time times 10 houses, which is 20 months, dealing with this type of crap? $5,000 times 10 houses would be 50 grand. How many of you would spend 50 grand out of your pocket, 20 months of your time, to have a net result when you're all done of $2 to $3 million of net worth and an income of $100,000 to $150,000 for the rest of your life? By the way, did I put it in perspective? Now, when I'm walking through a trashed house, I'm not thinking that way. I'm like everybody else, my emotions are high, I'm upset about this, but I realize it's part of the business. In any business, are there negatives? Sure, and there are negatives to the business of investing also. But you need to understand, are the payoffs probably worth the negatives? Yeah. All right, enough about that. But that key concept I just taught you, gang, is critical. You got to get rid of the bad debt and create good debt. All right, moving on to the next point, number 6.